So, Assalamualaikum and good day to everyone. Welcome to the Islam and Liberty Network's ongoing webinar series called Edraak, Recognizing Liberty. The Edraak webinar series is part of our monthly public dialogues aimed at enhancing understanding of the concept of liberty, its theoretical, legal, and social dimensions within diverse intellectual traditions. Today, we are honored to share our space with Dr. Václava Tlili from the University of West Bohemia in Pilsen, Czech Republic. Dr. Václava Tlili is a cultural anthropologist whose work focuses on traditional religious expressions in Islamic societies. Her research explores everyday manifestations of religiosity, particularly those occurring outside formal religious institutions, such as embodied ritual practices, oral traditions, devotional poetry and song, and forms of popular piety. Our discussion today will begin with an examination of the fascinating journey of Czech converts to Islam. We will then explore how spiritual conversion becomes an expression of personal liberty and authentic identity in a predominantly secular society, as well as make comparisons with different contexts, such as Muslim majority nations. This session will be moderated by the CEO of Islam and Liberty Network, Dr. Ali Salman, and includes a discussant, which is yours truly, Noor Netusha, Program Manager at the Islam and Liberty Network. So let's now begin with Dr. Václava Tlili's presentation. The floor is yours, Dr. Václava.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Thank you once again very much for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share some insights or aspects from my research on religious conversion to Islam, which I carried out in the context of my home country, the Czech Republic, part of which you can see in the photo and from where I'm sending my greetings. But I believe that some aspects may also be relevant for converts in other parts of the world as well. Maybe not only converts, but also just Muslims today. What's important to say in the beginning is that the Czech Republic has very few historical ties to the Islamic world and is generally quite secular. So showing religious beliefs openly isn't very common here. But even though people often talk about Czech atheism, the prominent Czech theologian and philosopher, his name is Tomáš Halík, says that this is not completely true. Sometimes people don't necessarily reject spirituality itself, but they reject rather what they think that religion means. And he suggests that it's more accurate to call the common approach to religion in the Czech Republic religious illiteracy, meaning that many people lack knowledge or understanding about religion. And this is largely because of the communist era here, which pushed spirituality out of public life and also limited opportunities to learn about religion. Therefore, people very often hold strong negative opinions about faith, but these views usually aren't based on real knowledge or experience. So in this talk, I would like to explore together with you what it might mean to express religiosity in a society where religion in general is often seen as the other or the strange, and where Islam in particular is viewed even more strongly as a feared outsider, maybe a threat or an enemy. Because it's nature that people can be afraid of the unknown. Or we can put it into the question, what does it mean to choose a religion or to embrace a religion when that choice may set you apart from your society? So let me begin by saying a few words about the approach to studying this deeply personal and often very sensitive human experience, because it is difficult to study it fully within just a single discipline, whether sociology or psychology or other discipline, since each field offers only a partial perspective. But in anthropology, which can also be called the study of humanity, we like to refer to an Indian tale, maybe you know it, and its related metaphor about a blind man and an elephant. Several blind men each touch a different part of the elephant and come to very different conclusions about what the elephant is like, based only on their limited experience. One man holds the elephant's trunk and thinks it is a snake. And this story illustrates how each discipline studies only one part of such a complex reality, missing the whole picture. And religious conversion can undoubtedly be considered a very complex, transformative reality, very emotional one, very intimate one. And anthropology tries to overcome this by combining multiple perspectives to understand the whole elephant. I mean, the full complexity of the human experience. And tries to provide more holistic understanding, sometimes more or less successfully, as it is often easier to discuss it in theory than to fully realize in practice. For example, research like this raises questions about trust to share very sensitive things with the researcher. But this is not our issue now. What I appreciate about the anthropological approach is that ideally there is no field of study that anthropology considers irrelevant or outside its scope. It encourages to take into account as many perspectives as needed to understand certain complex human experience, in our case, religious conversion. So this comprehensive framework ideally allows us to understand not only what happens in conversion, but also how and why it occurs within specific cultural and social contexts. So we can see conversion not just as a change in belief, but as an act of identity formation, self-determination, and ongoing negotiation with one's social environment. And what's important, anthropology helps us study religious conversion by moving beyond biased views based on our own culture. And instead, it helps us to understand conversion from the convert's point of view. And anthropology also allows us to see that religious identity isn't fixed. It changes over time, and it might be a rather ongoing process. Now, we can look at religious conversion also as a response to something. Or in other words, it is good to recognize that people explore religious conversion for many different reasons. In the context of the Czech Republic, people who convert to Islam are often driven by curiosity and a desire to learn more about this faith in particular, since Islam is frequently portrayed in a negative light, especially in the media. This curiosity can actually make the religion even more appealing or attractive to explore. And it's interesting that the studies from other countries also show that after some global events where Muslims are publicly criticized or portrayed negatively, the number of conversions to Islam often increases. And it seems that public controversy can spark deeper interest and lead some individuals to explore the faith more deeply. They want to experience it firsthand rather than rely on what others say. And for some people, their conversion or conversion journey can start with a quiet feeling. Something is just missing. Some people feel like their lives lack direction or deeper meaning because they live in a society where anything goes. But that freedom can sometimes feel overwhelming or even empty. In contrast, when they discover Islam, they find a way of life that offers clear guidelines, daily rituals fill their lives, they gain moral boundaries that fulfill a natural human need to recognize and feel them, a sense of purpose, which can be comforting and give their life clear structure and meaning. And sometimes conversion to Islam begins with a simple curiosity. I mean that a person wants to try out, wants to explore what it involves to pray, to fast. In a society that values individual freedom and where different cultures and beliefs can live side by side, people might feel free to explore. They might think, what would it be like to try this faith? Could it speak to me? Could it help me live better? And so they begin to practice step by step, not because they have to, but because they want to see if it brings something meaningful, something positive into their life. It's more like an experimental approach, and I see it actually quite common, especially in Western societies, where such exploration is possible and accepted and perceived as normal. And regarding the stages of the conversion process, when we look at religious conversion through the lens of anthropology, we don't see it as a sudden, one-time event. Instead, it's more like a journey, often beginning quietly, without a clear starting point. For many, there is no dramatic turning moment. Sometimes this journey leads to formally saying the Shahada, and sometimes it doesn't. Some people don't feel like they need to say the Shahada officially, or they may simply say it during prayer as a personal expression of faith. Some people or some converts even, they don't even feel the need to socialize with other Muslims. So that's why we can understand everything that happened before someone started to identify as a Muslim as part of the path toward conversion or pre-conversion stages, and everything that comes after. It is hard to decide after what exactly, but these new experiences, challenges, and personal growth can be seen as the post-conversion stages. And this broader perspective allows us to study conversion as a potentially rich, ongoing human experience that unfolds over time and in many directions. And what is also interesting is that many studies show that conversion often begins during time of personal crisis. And this appeared to me also during my research. Even it is very subjective to say what the crisis is, because what feels like a crisis is different for everyone, and it doesn't always look the same. But it's also important to recognize that crisis doesn't have to be always big, dramatic event. It's often rather very personal, inner feeling, something hard to see from the outside. It can be a sense of emptiness or confusion, or simply the feeling that something in life isn't right anymore. Sometimes it's not easy to describe it. Some studies, by the way, point to a crisis related to a difficult relationship with parents, especially with the father. However, it seems that the crisis often becomes a central part of the conversion journey or convert's life. For many converts, this crisis remains present even after they accept Islam. But over time, they begin to see it differently. It becomes something very meaningful for them. And that's because they start learning about patience, faith, and trust in God. They start to think about it differently. They start to rewrite the story of their past. So what once felt like weakness or pain or disaster, they see now as a blessing, may be necessary step toward personal growth. And key role in this transformation often plays stories of the prophets. Take the story of Prophet Joseph, for example. He was betrayed by his own brothers, left alone in a well, but still he recognized, still he stayed patient and kept his faith. And for many converts, this story becomes like a mirror, and they recognize parts of their own journey in this story. Feelings of rejection, loneliness, or being lost. And suddenly these stories aren't just something happened in the past. They speak directly to their own lives. And these stories help them make sense of what they have been through. And also they offer hope. And all these things tell us something also about the society these people convert in. Because conversion is not just a personal act. It's like a commentary on the world we live in, where so many individuals feel lost, disconnected, or unseen. It raises the question, what is it in our society that makes people convert to Islam? That the Islam can be a remedy or a solution. I think that our society, our Czech society, is very individualistic. Many modern societies are like that. And Islam, among other things, gives a person a strong sense of belonging, not necessarily to any people or to any Muslim community or more Muslims, but I mean the spiritual belonging, which can offer comfort or purpose. And what is also interesting for many converts, the more they learn about Islam, the more they feel they have always been Muslim. And now they can say that they just didn't have the words for it. They couldn't put it into words what they were feeling. So for many of them, it's not about becoming someone new, but rather finally understanding what they have always been. So what is important here is that they don't reject their past. They just found some missing puzzle piece or pieces, and things started to make more sense now. So these individuals, I could see their journey as a quiet, natural continuation, not a break between past and present. And what is good to highlight here is that these individuals, they often don't feel like they need to express their faith openly. They don't need to show to the people around who are they now, what they feel, how they changed. They don't make big steps for visible changes. Unlike those who view their past as something to leave behind, they think they left in a sin. In those cases, conversion is more dramatic. New clothes, dress code, new habits. They like to adopt Islamic practices that are visible. It is almost as if they need to announce publicly, now my life is finally right. Look at me, I'm fine now. I'm now on the right path. But even though in Czech Republic we have religious freedom, as I already mentioned, people are, especially towards Islam, really critical. It's not only about lack of knowledge, but this is also one of crucial points. What I can say is that at primary schools here, children are usually taught the basics of world religions quite briefly. Regarding Islam, it is who was the prophet, that there is a book called Quran. Muslims are pray at in the mosque. We can find basic practice of Muslims in 5 pillars. Just a light overview. I remember myself at that age how strange it was for me. I had no idea about Muslims. I had never met one. Very little literature was available about that. So expressing openly, visibly that I am now a Muslim can create strong tension in our society, especially with family, friends. Many people I talked to were kicked out of their jobs. They lost their ties with the members of their families, and here. There's a difference between conversion at a young age or as already an adult, because young converts often face difficulties with their parents, but many converts who convert as adults are rejected by their own children for years. So it's hard to say which is worse, or at what age is ideal to convert. And some converts ended up paradoxically in really bad situations afterwards, after the conversion. Things like alcoholism and similar struggles. I remember it wasn't an easy to do this research at all for me. And there were many moments when I almost gave it up because of the stories I was hearing. One day I told myself that it was just too heavy, too intense, that I didn't want to work on this topic anymore. Because these converts were all the time sharing their stories with me, which I was, of course, grateful for. But there is a limit what you can handle listening to. So I seriously considered switching to something else, simply different topic, with no need to listening to the stories. Yes. So on the other hand, those who can feel the continuity often move through this transition or transformation more quietly. No big gestures. Of course, one cannot go against their feelings or personal needs. What I want to say here is that conversion doesn't need to be always about big change, but sometimes more about recognition. And these converts just put a name to something that they already felt that it was deep inside of them. And for such individuals, embracing Islam feels less like adopting totally new identity and more like coming back home to something they have always carried, was inside, or they are familiar with. But as we have already mentioned, when someone experiences conversion as a truly dramatic change in their life, there is often a strong need to show their discovery of the true to those around them. This is where Victor Turner's idea of rites of passage becomes very visible. Changes in clothing, adopting new vocabulary, Islamic phrases, different behavior toward the opposite gender. Such individual often becomes an outsider in their own society and may even feel like they are losing their national identity. For example, Czechs often identify strongly with things like beer or traditional food like pork with dumplings. This is just a part of an early stage of conversion that Anne-Sophie Rold calls zealotry, which means something like fanatism. At this point, converts want to be the best Muslim and sometimes try too hard to make up for what they didn't do before. But later on, many realized that it's not possible to live as a perfect ideal Muslim, especially according to very strict interpretations, while fully participating in Czech society. They may start to feel tension between the expectations they have adopted from certain religious teachings and the cultural norms around them. it becomes clear that maintaining every aspect of a highly visible or rigorous religious life might not only be impractical, but also socially isolating. And this, I think, we can apply on almost every society, and we do not need to talk just about converts, but ordinary Muslims. I think that anyone who has gone through this radical phase definitely has their own story. So over time, some begin to relax some of the strict rules they once tried to follow to the letter. They start looking for a more realistic and personal way to practice their faith. One that still aligns with their beliefs, but also allows them to live more comfortably and meaningfully without the society they are part of. This often means shifting from a public, outward expression of religion to something more internal and private. So their faith is still very important, but it becomes something more quiet, something that is lived rather than constantly shown. It becomes part of what they are, not necessarily something they always perform for others. If it wasn't enough for converts, they don't only face challenges and rejection from the wider non-Muslim society. Sometimes they also encounter doubts and criticism from within the Muslim community itself. Some Muslims may question their commitment or their authenticity, making them feel like their faith isn't pure enough, isn't good enough. Because Czech converts normally aren't from traditional Muslim backgrounds or aren't ethnic Arab. They are Europeans living in a very secular society, so they can feel excluded or not fully accepted by Muslims around. So this can create a difficult sense of being caught between two worlds. And they often struggle to find any sense of belonging. Many converts struggle with feelings of isolation because their old social circles may not understand or accept their change, while the new religious community may have its own expectations. So they can feel that they are not good enough. They can struggle with guilt or shame, feeling that they haven't yet reached the spiritual or moral standards set by the community. I say the community, I mean the Muslims around them. And it's really a very vulnerable stage where they question their worthiness and place within other Muslims. And this can gradually turn into disillusionment with the Muslims themselves. As these converts learn more, they may start to notice that the behavior of some Muslims around or their religious interpretations don't match what they learn that Islam should be. And this again can create a deep sense of disconnect. And again, it's a difficult position. Because not everything they initially adopted in their practice of Islam is actually rooted in the religion itself. And just over time, with deeper study and reflection, they begin to distinguish between what is truly part of Islamic teaching and what stems from specific cultural traditions or even misinterpretations. For example, take the way of dressing, clothing. At first, a convert may believe that certain clothing styles are religiously required, but later they may discover that many of these expectations are shaped more by regional cultures than by core Islamic principles. And what is considered to be modest in one country might look very different in another country, and yet both may align with Islamic values in their own ways. And this realization can be both liberating and challenging. On one hand, it allows converts to develop a more personal relationship with their faith. But on the other hand, it can be confusing or even disappointing to learn that some practices they adopted with sincerity may not be as universally Islamic as they once thought. And for some converts, this stage of disillusionment can become so confusing, so emotionally exhausting, so painful that they begin to question their entire journey. Is it worth it? Because of the gap between what they see that Islam should be, how it should be lived, and the reality they experience with Muslims around. And as a result, a few may eventually decide to step away from Islam altogether, or at least have a break. Some of them take time to reflect. They need to think about it again and consider what they should do. And here, of course, support from those around them is essential at this stage. So we can see that conversion as a process has different stages, and this can help us to understand what converts or even some native Muslims might go through. In the Czech context, as I could observe, many people come to realize that their identity is not only Muslim, but also Czech, European, and often shaped by a secular or post-Christian culture. And they understand that these aspects of who they are just as important to them as being Muslim, and that finding a way for all these parts to coexist is essential to their sense of self. Moreover, I see that sometimes their Czech, European or cultural background, any cultural background, can help ground their Muslim identity. And that, in fact, these parts of the self can offer stability, reminding them that they are not lost, that they are just part of something bigger, they belong to broader reality. So awareness of the complexity of oneself is very, very important. And because of this all, many converts create a way to practice Islam that fits their own life, the part of the world they live in. Some refer to this phenomenon as Czech Islam, or put any other nationality. Though I'm not sure if that's the best term to use, because it highlights how faith can adapt to local culture and any personal experience, but the label itself may feel limiting or not fully capture the diversity of their experience or practice. What I mean is that they don't try to copy Arab Muslims exactly. Instead, they try to find their own way, study and adapt their faith to their culture and society they live in. They also become better equipped to navigate both the Muslims they have around and the non-Muslim environment, learning how to engage with each and explain their beliefs effectively. So they go through the stages we mentioned and learn to cope with them. And through this process, they can become really very strong individuals. So we can see that to convert to Islam is often not an easy process. It's often long and challenging one, but ideally it ends with the ability to maintain inner peace no matter what happens around them, because being a Muslim in Europe is always a sensitive matter. And this inner peace could be, I believe, reached by creating a supportive circle that respects your unique path, having friends or family around, or someone who stands by your side and simply supports your choices. And just as important is studying the religion, which gives a person confidence that what they are doing is the right thing. So we can understand conversion process as a deep act of claiming personal freedom or liberty. And although religious freedom is legally guaranteed in the Czech Republic, real life experiences and stories shows that this freedom can be limited by social pressures, especially when one's faith becomes visibly apparent to others. And it is often at these moments that the true strength of a convert's commitment and resilience of a convert's commitment are tested. So conversion is not just a change of faith, but it's a journey that shapes identity and requires ongoing courage, at least in the Czech context. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Václava. This was very deep, both at the level of personal reflection and also as an academic studying the process of conversion. I congratulate you on sharing that. I think on building almost a framework around the conversion, looking at the process from the lens of anthropology. And there are various important messages in your presentation. I'm not going to try to summarize them, but my key takeaways are as, first of all, conversion as a slow change, as a recognition, as not a sudden shift in one personal life. And it especially, I think it is more challenging in an environment in the West in particular, where people are generally critical towards Islam, and even looking at the values demonstrated by Muslims, and that makes the process of conversion towards Islam particularly more challenging. And also, I think you mentioned that how it is linked with the personal crisis, with in many cases, and how examples from prophetic history becomes a source of inspiration, source of support in that time. And again, I think you emphasized a few times on individualism versus a sense of belonging. I think that's very important. Individual freedom being a core value, at least in the Western context, although we believe that it is should be a universal concept. And I personally see, the individual being a unit of society and how they are connected. I don't see social at odds, but then maybe complementing each other. And that is why I think at the last you mentioned that it is a personal journey, but then personal journey happens in a societal context. And that makes it more challenging because of social pressures which the change is bringing. These are very deep messages which I learned from your presentation. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing those insights with us. I would now like to request Noor Netusha, who is also a convert, and who will then reflect on your presentation, but also I think on her own experience as a part of this conversation. And then we'll open for discussion. Noor, over to you, please.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dr. Václava. That was very so relatable on the level I did not expect. Because I'm from Malaysia. I grew up in Malaysia, which is a Muslim majority country. 65% of the Malaysian population are Muslims, and non-Muslims are a minority, significant minority. And I think what I really appreciate from your presentation was this the stages of what the conversion journey is about. Oh wait, yeah, okay.
Can you, yeah, this presentation may be closed down, maybe. Dr. Václava?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So as I was saying, I appreciate the framework where you explore the various stages of of a convert's journey. And recently I was interviewed by another PhD student who was an anthropologist studying the topic in a similar light, but in Malaysia. And I wonder, I would just love to get in touch with her and tell her about what an amazing framework that you have, that, and I wonder if she even read your thesis for that matter, because it really does help with um understanding it on and balancing the personal and the what I would say is also the political when it comes to being a Muslim convert. So I wanted to share a little bit about the Malaysian context, because it's a Muslim majority country, and how in some ways we can draw parallels, like on the personal level, but in a sense it's a little bit different, because in Malaysia Islam is seen as a institutionalized religion, and in a way because it is, we have courts and laws, and in politics religion plays a very pivotal role in bringing people together, or dividing them, as some would say. So it has this impression that it's a very legalistic religion. So in my case, when I decided, hey, I wanted to become a Muslim, ev everyone around me was like, why would you do that? Why would you give away your freedom or your liberty to become a Muslim in Malaysia? So it's the complete opposite. It's not seen as an expression of reclaiming freedom or liberty, but oftentimes it's seen as giving up your freedom and liberty. And of course, the question is, where does this notion come from? Where do these sentiments come from? It's not Islamophobia per se. Using the term Islamophobia in the context of Malaysia can be very problematic, and some people do, some researchers do, but I don't necessarily agree with it. But it's more like the fact that there is a legal framework that is very difficult to challenge in Malaysia. So for instance, one of the tensions that exists in Malaysian society is that under Malaysian law, a non-Muslim has to convert to Islam in order to legally marry a Muslim. So because of this requirement, it means that often leads to this assumption that conversions are usually driven by marital intentions rather than personal religious conviction. So when I converted to Islam, there was just a widespread notion that people assume I got married. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not married. I'm very much single. But that was the something that, and it made me curious, like, where did this idea come from? Why did people just assume? And I realized, oh, because it's just been driven into people's minds, right? And it's also because convicts have also a rather unsavory reputation in Malaysia when it comes to religious politics in Malaysia. Um, One of the things is there's this issue called unilateral conversion of children in Malaysia. So there have been very controversial cases of great public interest, where parents split up, and one parent decides to become a Muslim and converts the children into Islam without asking for the consent of the other parent, and the courts siding with the parent that had converted without thinking about what is the agency of the children and what do they want. And lastly, the one other point of contention that draws the attention of converts in Malaysia is the issue of apostasy. So the reason why people believe that you're giving up your freedom is because you can't actually ever leave Islam if you're in Malaysia. Once you become Muslim, it's like, you know, the song Hotel California. You can check in anytime you like, but you cannot leave. Literally just like that. So when Muslims convert, they need to go through this process, which I had gone through. Going to the government, taking my shahada with a state endorsed mufti, but if I ever decide, okay, you know what, I don't want to be Muslim anymore, I could go to the Sharia court, but it's very unlikely that I would be successful in leaving the religion. There have been cases where people have been granted the opportunity to leave Islam because of marriage, a marriage that dissolved, and they only converted with the intention for the marriage to be recognized. But this is still considered a very rare situation. And so these are some of the contentions. And another one that is basically where converts are seen as a very um, political entity in a way, a very political community, is because in Malaysia, being a Muslim is conflated constitutionally with an ethnic identity, which is the majority called Malay. The intertwining of ethnic and religious identity then reinforces Malay supremacy as an ideal, where Islam plays a central role in national identity and politics. So as a result, oftentimes what you would hear as a convert is that when you become, even though you're not Malay ethnically, like me, I'm ethnically Indian, I became Muslim, you would hear, oh, so now you're Malay. And I'm like, no, I'm Indian who became a Muslim. And it's like, no, you are Malay now, you're part of the majority. So this conflation is something that is seen as a political tool, and often is used very strategically, especially in the cases that I cited in terms of this unilateral conversion or apostasy cases and things like that. So that's just a little bit about what I reflected and gathered from this. But of course, then there's so many challenges that what you shared was exactly what some of the things that I've been through, and I think many converts have been through. So I really appreciate that. I just wanted to share a little bit about Malaysian context in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for adding those insights, Noor. This is very enriching also, I think, for a discussion which we're going to open in a moment. This is also an interesting contrast, as Noor, you rightly, I think, picked up the situation in Czech Republic being a secular state, and Malaysia as a country where Islam is the state's religion, and as you rightly mentioned, the laws are codified accordingly. Those, of course, I'm aware that is a big discussion about the rule of law, about the constitution, and which comes at the higher level. So we can talk about it later. But I think the underlying issue is of religious freedom and looking at the case of conversion. And you also highlighted the other case, like for those who want to leave religion, leave Islam in that case, a very contrasting situation. So I will now request the participants to, contribute. They may like to turn on their video, like to see them if it is possible, and be part of more active conversation, and open the floor for discussion, comments, and questions. I think they can turn on their microphone themselves.
Yeah, they can.
They can, right?
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yeah, my internet's not good, but I've tried to switch on my video. Thanks for the very interesting and beneficial talk. I myself am also doing a study on conversions. I hope it's okay if I switch off my video, because I think that my connection option is so good.
All
So
right.
I'll just put off for a while. Yeah, yes, because I can't. Yeah. All right. So I myself, I'm actually doing a study on conversions. So this particular study is quite relevant to me. But mine is just on intra-religious conversion. So conversions within Islam, from Sunnism to Shia Islam or Salafi Islam. So my question is, conversions to Shia Islam and Salafi Islam in countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, especially Shia Islam, it's seen as a deviant religion. So I'm just paralleling it with the Czech Republic, whereby Islam itself is also seen as, sort of, I wouldn't call it deviant, but it's not seen in a good light. So I'm just wondering, in such a hostile, I don't know whether the word hostile is the right word, but in such a hostile environment, how do converts then sustain their conversion? Because you were telling me, you were saying that there was alcoholism and everything. So I'm wondering whether they're able to sustain their identity as a Muslim, as a new Muslim convert, or in the end, do they, after the zealotry phase, do they completely phase out of the religion? Yeah.
I
Thank
hope I
you.
understood well.
Yeah, Václava, you would like to answer?
Yes, she was asking about how converts in Czech Republic can stay firmly on their religion in that challenging situation or environment. Yes, like as I already said, or as I already mentioned, they at the end they mostly decide to leave the religious things just in their personal sphere. They don't want to provoke people. They don't want to show it more than it's needed. So they keep it just in their private sphere, and I think that's how it goes in Czech Republic. It's not possible to have a job, to work, to socialize, to interact with other people when you don't show your Czech identity. You need to identify yourself as a Czech in many ways. Like, for example, when I my personal experience, I can say when I interact with other people, when they see that I speak their language, that I am Czech, they are happy. They change their opinion at all. Like, first they may be suspicious, or they may don't like me. They make it's not easy for them to reach out to me. But when they hear me speak, when they see that we have things in common, it's easier for them to overcome it, that I have a scarf on my head.
So it's sorry if you don't mind. So it's more of it's like because they see you performing as a Muslim, it's sort of it makes you become foreign, is it? Yeah, they see you as someone now, and is it like you're no longer Czech because of the performance? So that's why some Muslims, especially, I guess for women it will be harder, for they will not be able to, because Islam is quite a performative religion, especially in terms of for women, right? They have to embody that Muslimness, with the hijab and the covering. So that like you said just now, like that performative aspect, that public performative aspect has been phased out for a more personal form of religion, a more individualistic religious outlook. Am I right to say that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you well. Maybe if you
Yeah.
heard,
Okay.
if you can
Yeah.
just
I
repeat
yeah.
my.
I'll switch off my video. I think my internet is not clear. So it's two parts to this. So does it mean that I'm assuming because you're Czech, right? But when you are wearing your hijab, so it's someone who wears the hijab, even though they are Czech, then they will be considered foreign because of their religious identity now. And for women, then it's sort of like a double bind because they are performative. They can't perform as a Muslim, like you said. They can't perform publicly as a Muslim. So now, to be a Muslim now means to be. It's more of a personal level and more individualistic level rather than a public communal performance, right? It's been sort of that's how they mediate the conversion. They sustain the conversion.
I heard the beginning. So what I can answer is that yes, I think that when our people see someone, mostly women, of course, as a Muslims, they have this symbol, hijab on or scarf on their heads. They consider them foreigners. They cannot consider them Czechs because we have so small number of Muslims in the Czech Republic. Like we are altogether 10 million inhabitants, and there are just 20 up to 30,000 of Muslims. So and most of them are immigrants, like native Muslims, foreigners. So so it's very rare, very unique to see Czech Muslims. And when people see you as a Czech Muslim, they directly consider you foreigner. No matter how you look like, you are foreigner. You are different. You are strange. You are not like us. But this, as I told you, this can change. This changes once you start to speak, and once you show that you have things in common, that you understand them, you speak about things they know, they like. I feel like the same language is very very important in this issue, and they can connect somehow to you and find a way to you, and just yes, and that there is no fear anymore as it was at the beginning.
Sure, thank you. So the external identity, like hijab, can create a challenge, but then the language is the connecting and the common factor. So that's helpful. Dr. Saeed is here. Is a great scholar from Pakistan on peace and conflict studies. Dr. Saeed, please go ahead.
Thank you. It was really interesting, and I have my question from Noor. Basically, I can relate. I mean, when she was saying that people, many people in Indonesia convert for the sake of marriage as well. I have heard similar stories in Sin. Lot of stories like this, where people convert for marriage and stuff. Hindus, Hindu girls especially, convert to Islam. So I want to know more about this. That there are issues of forced conversions. I mean, this is the term which is also used in this case. So are there these kind of cases? I mean, the marriage obviously is one way, one reason because of which people do convert. So are there issues of forced conversions as well in Malaysia? and whether, I mean, those who get converted, the main reason is the marriage. I mean, what is uh, basically, does it happen by choice, or there is some kind of a political element and force involved in that? Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Noor?
thanks, Dr. Saeed. If I heard correctly, the question was on the phenomenon of forced conversion and if it happens in the same way
Yeah.
in other parts of the world, right? In Malaysia.
And he
Okay.
was particularly referring
Yes.
to
Yes.
phenomena of
Oh, yeah.
Pakistan, especially Hindu girls. There has been reportedly forced marriages, Hindu girls living in
And
Pakistan. So
yeah,
give an example.
forced marriages and forced conversions, basically.
But
Forced
forced conversion.
conversions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So any similar things in Malaysia?
I have to confess that it's I'm not so familiar with the context of what it means to have a forced conversion happen in Pakistan. But in the case of in Malaysia, you don't always hear a case of forced conversion happening. But it's more like how it's been interpreted when couples elope or things like that. Then the family accuses, oh, my daughter was pressured into converting to Islam and things like that. But it's very, very rare. You see like sometimes a news report or a Facebook post about it. Um, that's as much as I can answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if you don't read it frequently in the newspaper, it means that the forced conversion is probably not the problem in Malaysian context.
Yes.
Not that we know of in common.
Because it's actually one of the things that I learned when I was preparing for this webinar is that the phenomenon of converts to Islam is very understudied from an anthropological perspective. There's not a lot of papers that you can read or dissertations about the lived experience of converts. You would have a lot of studies maybe on a more institutional level about the legal literacy of converts or things like this and more political issues, but we don't really have a lot of studies about on a more community level or about individuals per se and their experiences. So that's definitely a research gap to be filled.
Yeah, and yes, please, Slava, please.
I'm sorry. Yes, I just deeply agree what you say, and this was also reason for my decision to do this research because mostly we have many information about how Islam should be. What is the teachings? Even in Czech language, we don't have so much, but we don't know. We don't know much about what's happening in Muslims' minds and converts' minds. We don't know what's going on there, what they are going through, and this is very sensitive. And as you said, it's not easy to make such or do such a research because you have to establish trust between you and those people, and not every time they will be happy to share with you their painful things. So yeah, that's why I also think that it deserves more research, this topic.
Right. So I have a question, but I'll ask Saeed or Mustafa to come in first, and then we can continue. Saeed, you want to point out something relevant to this?
Yes. Actually, I wanted to say basically that in case of Pakistan, like I have there was something which was missed. After Mustafa, maybe I was thinking something else.
Sure.
Yeah.
No worries. Mustafa, would you like to come in and share your thoughts or question?
Yeah.
Please unmute. Mustafa, can you unmute yourself if you are speaking?
Stop to speak. Hmm? Are
Yes,
you hearing
we
me
can
now?
hear you. Yes. Oops, sorry, you got muted again. You muted yourself.
Okay. Thanks. I have to stop speaking. Don't speak. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Are you hearing me now? Thanks.
Oh,
Stop to speak. Okay. Thanks for your, I said deep presentation, because what we are hearing, it is like deep understanding and comprehension of very important act in our life. It's to be the conversion. I think it's a very important subject, especially in the Muslim countries, and especially for scholars in Islamic studies. We have little understanding of why people convert, because there is something paradoxal. The paradox is, when no Muslim convert to Islam, our Muslim scholar will be happy. But when Muslim exit from Islam to convert to Christianity or to atheism, they are not happy. And the explanation is very poor, because we need some framework like that, from anthropology, from sociology, to understand why people make this choice. And in this way, in this thing, I will say that your presentation is very important and have to be written and to be shared and to be and we would like in Muslim countries, in our Islamic studies, see and read and hear speech and presentation like that. Secondly, I would understand a little bit more about how Islam is in Czechoslovakia, in Czech. How it is, for example, how it is organized. For example, did the state recognize Islam as a religion, or how Muslims are organized in their mosque or in their community? For example, did they have how they appoint the imams? Did they have mufti? How Islam is organized? This is my question. And thanks a lot for your presentation again.
Great questions, Mustafa. Thank you. Václava, would you like to respond?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for your kind comment and for your question. That's a good question. How Muslim community is organized in the Czech Republic? Unfortunately, not very well. And Muslims themselves, they recognize it and they acknowledge it, that we are not organized or structured. We have one mosque in the Czech Republic. So if you want to go for a Friday prayer, you have to travel. We have, of course, some prayer rooms in the center of the capital, or also in other big cities. There are some prayer rooms. Prayer rooms are also where Muslim students live, so they can perform their prayers together. But as a community, we don't perceive ourselves community. It's our big problem that we don't have strong ties together. We don't meet much. As I already mentioned, we are only a small number. I have about three Czech Muslim friends in Prague, where in the city where I live. and there are no strong connections. So that's why maybe our lives differ a lot from lives of Muslims in Muslim societies, where Muslims have Muslim families, Muslim neighborhood, Muslim friends everywhere. Children are taught Muslim values or Islamic values everywhere at school and public everywhere. We don't have it. And there are Friday sermons in the capital city where I live, but yes, I don't attend it, so I cannot speak about it much. I was active in a way that I was teaching on Sunday Islamic school at mosque children, Quran and some basic Islamic teaching. I was part of it for years. So that was the only way where Muslim children, mostly children of native Muslims, where they can learn Islam. Otherwise, there is no opportunity for that. But at the same time, I need to confess that like Czech values are values that Czech people, or things that Czech people value, are not that far from what I perceive to be right according to Islamic teaching. So it's not hard for us to live here, to live in Czech society among Czech people. It's not challenging much when you find your own way, when you finally decide how you want to live, what's important for you. Like at the beginning, it is challenging because there are troubles with family, at work, at school, and so on. But when you finally decide how do you want that, or how do you want to live, and when you clearly speak it to publicly, people can overcome it. People can overcome it. It's still easier to be Czech and Muslim than foreigner and Muslim in this society, I guess.
And thank you for that helpful answer. Said, would you like to come in now?
Yes. Basically, I wanted to ask that because from Sen's experience, same case, I have come to know like there are mostly women. I mean, this conversion, mostly women are converted, and men are less in number as compared to women. Is it the same in other parts of the world? And why is that? I mean, basically, can we explain that why women are converting more as compared to men to Islam, if it is the case?
Okay, interesting.
And can you repeat for me the question, because I couldn't hear at all?
So the question, let me repeat it. So his observation is that mostly it is the women who are converting to Islam more than men. So, would you like to agree with that or offer an explanation for that? And I guess Noor can also answer that if you like.
Yes, that's a very good observation, and researchers show that that's true. And also in the Czech context, I can see that most Muslims are women. Normally, people say that it's because they met Muslim men and they just got married and embraced Islam just emotionally, just because this affection. But it's not always true. According to research I did, I interviewed about 40 converts, Czech converts to Islam, from many parts of the Czech Republic, and only few of them, 4 or 5, met ever Muslim before their conversion. There were no connections to any Muslims before their embracing Islam. And why women convert more to Islam? Maybe because they are more emotional than men. Maybe not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, we have to interview some male for that. Noor, you like to say something here?
Yeah, sure. Because I think that was a similar observation I had when I went to convert or new Muslim gatherings in Malaysia. You will find that there are way more women than men in a lot of these gatherings. Maybe there could be two reasons that maybe men often deal with things by themselves, right? That's always the assumption. A lot of studies about psychology also talk about how um, men don't necessarily engage in community when it comes to dealing with inner crisis, whereas women tend to come together and and speak and share and be vulnerable together. So, but I would think that if it's true that there are more women than men that become Muslims, it's maybe because women are always subjected to so much societal pressure in how they have to be or who they are, in how they in appearance inside and outside, right? And somehow Islam may be seen as a remedy to navigate the turbulence of being a woman in the body politic of society. Yeah, that's my take. Actually, if you don't mind, I wanted to circle back to Dr. Said's earlier question about forced conversion because something just came to my mind.
Please.
Forced conversion by marriage is not really a thing that's documented, but if you were asking me about forced conversion of communities, yes, that is quite well documented in Malaysia. And in particular, it's the indigenous community that's subjected to forced conversions in Malaysia. It's a very controversial topic. Where we have documentaries and news reports, anecdotes of the Orang Asli, as we call them, Orang Asli experiencing pressures from so-called state government officials who represent the religious affairs departments in respective states in Malaysia. Coercing communities to convert into Islam so that they can receive state assistance. And of course, the indigenous communities are some of the most impoverished in Malaysia. So this is definitely something that has been discussed and is a more prominent case compared to forced conversion by marriage. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Can I ask both of you a direct question, but you don't have to answer it. And the question comes from actually Václava's presentation when she was explaining about a conversion process, and I was thinking, and Noor, you also hinted maybe like social reasons for conversion. So if I were to say there could be a spiritual reason for conversion, an emotional reason, a social reason like a justice situation, what reason would you pick for yourself?
I could go first.
Yes.
For me, it was definitely inner crisis. So that's the one that
That
I
is
related to the
spiritual.
most. Inner crisis.
Inner crisis. Okay.
Yes, I was
Right.
going through a really difficult period in my life with my health. I had a major health setback and things like that. And that was actually the turning point, where it made me think about death and the afterlife and things like that. And then I at the time I had just completed my master's and I was doing my fieldwork on the Muslim community in Patani. And I met this teacher and ustad, So I just called him up and I asked him, so I have a question. It's really random. How do you become a Muslim? And he was so shocked and he's like, oh, why? And I was like, no, I just had this epiphany that, I want to be a Muslim. I've thought about it for so long. And yeah, so it was definitely Václava's presentation slide about inner crisis that resonated with me the most because, yes, that's definitely what drove me and to take the leap of faith, basically.
Thank you for engaging. Václava, would you like to answer that?
Yes, of course, sure. I think that in my case, it was mostly intellectual reason because, as I already mentioned, we have a freedom here to know, to learn, and we are pushed to learn more. And I was a very curious child. I converted at a very young age. And it was because I love to learn more, to know more about different cultures, people in different parts of the world, and I was pushed even by my family, by my father, to read about what's happening around the world. And to learn languages, and I can say that before I converted to Islam, I started to learn Arabic. So maybe this was also helpful for me because once you study this language, you come across terms, Islamic words, and so on and so on, and you are just curious, what does it mean? And that goes hand in hand with my travel to Islamic world. It was in Tunisia, and I saw for the first time Muslims, and it was very surprising for me that the society look really different from ours. That I see very different things. Yes, so I think it was intellectual reason and curiosity.
Thank you. And then you supplemented that intellectual curiosity with your social observations also, as you mentioned. It's very interesting and very helpful to know that. We are moving towards the end of the program. Are there any questions or discussions, points left? I have to make a small observation, and we can have that. I was thinking about that Saeed's question about that why women are converting more, and then of course there is an explanation. And I was thinking back into our history, the Islamic history, that the first person Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spoke about the revelation was actually his wife, and he was sought help from her to actually validate his own spiritual experience. He went into a sort of a questioning that whole experience, and then but the validation comes from her at a personal, social level. So I think certainly women have played that role historically in this case, and probably it continues to be the case today.
Or maybe we don't know about those men much. They are hidden. Because what appeared to me during the research, many men are Muslims, and like in the Czech context, they are living somewhere, and they don't have any relations to any community, any people. We don't know about them. They are just living their life. They are somehow connected on the internet, maybe with someone, but they don't have the need to show themselves to.
They're not disclosing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, we can close the program. Mustafa, you have any last comment?
I will put. I will say that we can see the conversion from different perspectives. Today we have listened to anthropological perspective. Also, we can speak it from sociological and economics, because we have like economics of religion can so
Yeah. Okay. Well, we understood that there could be various perspectives to understand the conversion, and we can take it up maybe in the future topics. Maybe we need to close the very interesting discussion. I wish to thank Dr. Václava and Noor, both of you for enriching the debate, and I'm sure that when we'll publish this also on our social media, it will generate further interesting debate. Over to you, Noor, to say thank you and final words.
Thank you so much, everyone. For me, I definitely enjoyed this discussion. It was very engaging and obviously very spiritually relatable. And of course, then intellectually, right? Because that's how we just, we've had the privilege to arrive here in a way, alhamdulillah. So this recording will be made available on YouTube. And if you're new to the Islam and Liberty Network, please, please, please do follow us on our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We will have more webinars coming up after this, so please stay tuned. One of our speakers did join us today for next month, Dr. Mustafa Raji, so you don't want to miss that either. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day and see you next time.
Thank you all.